Hi there, this is Alyssa from Unbusy, where I teach you how to simplify your home, create routines that work for you as a work from home mom, and uplevel your work at home mindset. Today, we have a bonus episode for you to help you decide whether you need to start an online business. We're bringing on a guest, Stef Gass, to talk about how to get clear on what you might want to talk about. Steph is a CEO, wife, boy mom, coffee lover, and PJs all day enthusiast. She helps women get clear on their niche, start a podcast, and grow a successful online business God's way. Steph is the host of a top 0.5% globally ranked podcast for Christian entrepreneurs called Online Business for Christian Women. And she believes it's possible to partner with God to create impact and income without sacrificing or buying into social media hustle. So hi, Steph. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Alyssa. Thanks for having me. So excited.
I love your mission statement about partnering with God in business.
Mm-hmm.
Most people do not talk about that.
Right.
And the part about not buying into the social media hustle. So you just combined two countercultural things in one. I can't wait for this.
Plus being in your PJs all day. That's totally countercultural. Yep.
So fun. So as soon as we get into the online business space, we hear a ton about this thing called a niche. Can you just explain to our listeners what a niche is?
Yeah. So looking at creating something of your own, whether you make money from it, whether it's just mission work, whether it's like, I need to start a hobby or I want to make money and I need something that I'm going to do, you have to decide what that thing is going to be. And I know that as women and moms, and we have so many different things we could do, and we have different things that we've done. And so sometimes it gets really confusing. So the very first place you want to start is getting clear on what your niche is. And so what a niche is simply a segment of what you're going to talk about or what you're going to offer, or it's a direction. For example, fitness. Fitness would be a niche, or meal prep, or homeschooling, or let's see, I'm going to write a fiction book on blank. Like, oh, I teach people to write books. See how that's all like a specific thing. So that is a niche. Now I want to go one level deeper here, Alyssa, and explain that I don't believe that when you're getting started, it actually is beneficial for you to just have a niche, because everyone has a niche, right? When they get started with a thing like fitness, great. You and the millions of other people talking about fitness, you're going to get lost in this big sea, and you are going to be a very, very, very small fish. So what I actually teach my students to do is to micro niche in, which is one level deeper. And so this is figuring out, okay, inside of this, what, let's say fitness, for example, I need to figure out what inside of fitness is my micro niche. So this could look like fitness for busy moms with kids under 3. Like that's going to look very different, right? As far as helping this woman with fitness when she's got a 2-year-old and a newborn. Maybe you got to do mommy and me workouts, or you need to speak to how busy that she is and have quick workouts. Or let's say instead of nutrition as a niche, you go deeper into micronutrition or macros for weight loss. Now you have a micro niche. That is really the very first core step when you're looking at, how do I create a niche that's going to actually produce for me when I'm just getting started? It's finding niche and then digging deeper, micro niche.
Yeah. And it sounds limiting, but it really opens you up so much more, because all of a sudden, when you have that extra layer of the micro niche, suddenly all the topics pop to your mind. It's not just the fitness or the productivity coaching or the podcasting. It's yes, but the mom with little kids fitness. It's the Christian podcasting. It's the work at home productivity coaching. And then you're not lost in that sea of, but everybody's done this article. No. They haven't done it your specific niche's way.
Exactly. And what's cool about that is your micro niche, it can be a what within a what. For example, like macro planning for weight loss within nutrition. That's a what within a what. But it can also be a who within a what, like Alyssa mentioned. So that could be like, for example, I teach people how to start a podcast, but I teach specifically Christian women how to start a podcast to grow an online business. So now I have a who inside my what. So you can go either way when you're niching down. And to speak to the limiting piece, like just remember that people will tell me that all the time. They're like, oh no, but now I can only talk about blank. So the rule is an 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time you speak to your micro thing, and then 20% you can talk about something that's a little bit rogue, not too crazy, but you can go off and talk about something that's kind of related, but not 100% to give yourself some freedom. Knowing that how many people are in your micro niche, guaranteed. I don't care how micro you go. Like there is $1 million opportunity for you the smaller that you get, because people are searching and Googling and looking for a specific problem, a specific answer to a specific problem. And when you are talking to everybody, you're not providing that one problem, that one solution to that one problem, right? And so as you get more clear on what your one person is and the one problem and the one solution, because you're talking to such a small specific thing, that's where it explodes. And even if there's 100,000 people across the whole world that have that one specific problem, think about the revenue potential for you being the person that they come to for that answer.
That's such an interesting application of the 80-20 rule. I hadn't heard of that one before.
I make things up all the time.
Well, it's great. So can you walk our listeners, since they're work from home moms, through how to build a business from a niche as opposed to just random build a business, but how do you do it niche first?
Yeah. So that's such a great question. The very first thing we begin with is clarity on what that niche will be, which we just talked about. And this is often the hardest part for people because we're not just one thing. You know, so many of us are moms or grandmothers, or we work outside of the home, but we have this passion, this calling. We have a specific faith that we want to infuse. We're good at this thing. And we're so many pieces, and we're trying to come to this like micro niche space. And so you first have to get clarity in your calling. And I have a workshop that we'll share with you guys in a little bit that can help you go through that, because it is a process of taking all these pieces, like your spiritual gifts, your vocational gifts, the trials you've gone through, the experiences you've walked through, the passions you have, and kind of bridging those different pieces together and finding, I call it the core denominator, the common denominator, or the root between them all to figure out what the one core thing is. So once you've figured out the one thing, the next step is I'm opposite of everyone else on social media world that will tell you the next step is to go build a social media presence. I actually believe the next step is to create long form content. And I promote podcasting because the easiest thing in the world, I believe, especially is like, I'm like half introvert, half extrovert. And so I love like being in my comfies, sitting behind a microphone, producing some content for my person, and knowing that my content doesn't have a shelf life. It doesn't have an algorithm that it fights against. My content actually grows the business for me. And so podcasting is how I, online business for Christian women brand, and I help them start a podcast to grow in less time, get behind the mic, produce some content, and then that starts working for me. I believe that's the very first step in starting your online business, because that's how you're going to grow your audience, is through your podcast. Now, you don't have to listen to me. You could do blogging. That's another long form. It's just a little bit slower. You can do video, but not everyone loves video, just because I know for me, I don't want to get ready all the time. I have, especially when I was first growing my business, I had young kids. I had 2 boys that were under 3 when I was starting. That did not work. They were like in here with fruit snacks, talking about poop. And I'm like, I'm trying to make a YouTube, like get out. And it just was a hot mess express. But podcasting allowed me to pause the recording. It allowed me to clip things. It allowed them to be, like there are kids, like, of course they're just going to be kids. And we don't want to have to feel pressured to do something in a certain way, or like push our kids out of our lives just because we're growing a business from home. So podcasting gave me that time freedom and that flexibility to do it with them here. So that's that second step. So then after I have them start a podcast, that's how we grow an audience, right? Because we can't ever make money if we don't have an audience. And so the next step is then figuring out, what does my listener actually need? What are they searching for? What are they looking for? What are the problems that they're experiencing? And so, for example, let's say that we go back to let's say that you love homeschooling. You homeschool your kids and you're like, man, I want to build a business around teaching other stay-at-home moms to homeschool their kids, and let's micro niche it in flexible homeschooling. homeschooling where they can go to the park in the middle of the day, that we cook breakfast and that's part of home ec. It's like very flexible. And so you build a podcast called The Flexible Homeschooling Method. Great. You start creating content for your podcast, like the number one way to decide if you're ready to homeschool. Because remember, like you're talking to this mom who might be thinking about it, or homeschool not working, why flexible homeschooling is the answer as a podcast episode. Or cooking breakfast with your homeschool kiddos. Welcome to Home Ec 101. Like these are fun little episodes that you can do to start drawing in the women who are like, man, I'm curious about that. Over about 60 to 90 days, you're going to start recognizing trends in your podcast. Like, man, they're loving this episode on how to start with flexible homeschooling. I'm going to create the flexible homeschooling method course, or I'm going to coach and I'm going to do some flexible homeschooling sessions with these women. So you can start offering something right on your podcast to actually make money. Now, notice that I only said 3 things. 1, clarity in your niche, and then micro niche in. 2nd, a podcast. 3rd, 1 offer. That's all I said. I didn't say and a social media presence. I didn't even say a website yet. Like you literally don't have to have these other things that you think are so critical. A freebie, forget it. Like you don't have to have all those extra things yet. These are really the 3 core principles to starting. And I think we have it very, very backwards.
Yeah, because when I started, I certainly heard that you've got to have a website, you've got to have a freebie. And I'm so glad I didn't hear any social media presence, or that would really have thrown me for a loop.
Yeah.
So I'm so with you on, you need that long form content. That is really what works.
Yeah.
And now I will agree with you. Podcasting is probably the easiest and fastest way for busy moms, but I'd like to hear your take on what you recommend is the best form of long form content and why you're so passionate, even countercultural, on not doing social media as an online business owner.
That's a great question. And the reason that, so it's my own experience that really started to make me question social media as a way of growing my business. So I've been a full-time entrepreneur for over 11 years now. And I had grown a very successful network marketing business. And I had done it all on social media, Facebook. But back then, Facebook was different. Like it wasn't super saturated. You were able to post something and people really clicked. And pretty quickly, what I noticed is like the space just got louder and louder. Like it got so crowded. And instead of people using it as this authentic place of connection, like I believe that social media used to be, it now became a place where everyone was vying for everyone else's attention. And it became an instant gratification and screaming and searching for overnight success platform. But imagine 20,000 people in an arena and everybody's screaming about their offer at the top of their lungs at the same time. Like,
oh, that's such a good metaphor.
That's social media. And that's what it's become. And so I was like, well, I did it this way before. Like I still have to do it this way. And so I was there all the time, Alyssa. Like I felt I was doing 15 stories a day. We were hours. Like I'm embarrassed to say that honestly, it was between 3 to 5 hours a day that I was spending on social media, trying to grow, trying to connect, trying to sell, and I wanted the content to matter for people. But the problem was their attention span on this app was so small that like, it wasn't converting. So all this content I was creating, one, it was stealing from my life because I wasn't present for my family. I felt like I had to capitalize on my kids to make some type of story connect for people. And like, instead of really being present in a moment, like dropping into like, I want to laugh with my son right now and like just be here. It became like, oh, my son's laughing. How cute. Let me grab a story because someone else's kid, they want their kid to like, it became this whole like rigmarole of watching my life through a screen. And I started to feel so convicted. Like, this is not right. Like, this isn't right for me. This isn't feeling good. I was addicted to my phone, constantly carrying it around, clicking it all the time. Like, did somebody message me? Like, it became truly an addiction in my life. And, but I was so afraid to lay it down because I didn't know how else to grow. And, I thought that it was working. I thought we had grown Instagram to 750 likes per post. I had lots of people watching my Instagram stories, and I felt God leading me to stop and to trust him. And it made no sense because this was like the first year. I was like 6 months into podcasting. It was really working. Podcasting was really working, but I was like, man, we've spent years like growing Instagram. Like all this effort has to mean something. Like if I just go away, and then it was so clear, like, start where you are. And so I actually started deleting the apps on the weekends. And that actually went back like 2 or 3 years. And I had already been doing that. So that's where I had started. And that felt great. On the weekends, I was totally present. I felt really good about it. But in about 6 months into podcasting, I heard the Lord say, like, get off for a month. So I got off of Instagram for a whole month. And I was shocked at what happened. So one, my Instagram completely died. I'm talking down to 15 likes a post. No one cared about stories. All the work was dead, gone. And what that showed me was that you have to be here. Your soul must be sold in order for this to make you feel good. But actuality, it wasn't actually working. Like without it, my business grew faster. I had 15 more hours, Alyssa, to be the visionary in my company. I started doing 2 episodes a week on the podcast and then 3 because I had so much time. I was like, what was I doing over there? Like revenue grew, the email list grew, everything exploded. So I kept on. I did 6 whole months without Instagram. Everything continued to blow up. And what I learned was I'm peaceful, I'm present, I'm free from this bondage of my phone and all this, the way that I thought I had to build a business. And the podcast took everything and grew it exponentially for me instead. And so that's why I'm so passionate. But what I think is super interesting for those listening is that you can take 2 hours of your life and you can make a video. You can put on your makeup, make a reel that you're going to repurpose to TikTok and all these places, try to make it cutesy, try to put some valuable content in there, post it. That was 2 hours of your life. You have 24 hours for that video to be shown. If you're lucky, there's a very small shelf life. But here's the sickening part. Only 10% of your followers even see it in that 24 hours. So do the math on that. Even if you had 1,000 followers, we're lucky if 10 people to 100 people even see it in that 24-hour period. And also, it's like 20 seconds. Do they care? Did it change their life? Like, why? Versus you spend 2 hours doing a podcast episode and you post that episode, and that episode is keyword rich. It's how to start a flexible homeschool, even as a busy working mom. Like they are excited about that content. It has deep connection. There's trust, and people search for that. They come and find your show. Forever shelf life, deep connection, very high conversion right on the episode, and you not having to even be on social at all and feel all those pressures of something that isn't even converting for you. It's one-to-many marketing versus one-to-one. That's why I'm so passionate. And we don't use Instagram as a company anymore. And we've still blown through every metric that we have here. And I have my time back. It feels amazing.
Yes, I always agreed with you on the ridiculously short shelf life of social media. And I'd always wondered, well, who watches the 20-second things and are they truly valuable? Because that's the push. No, it's got to be valuable. But really, how much can you teach someone in 20 seconds? And so, yeah, it's just, I'm so
I mean, and can it work for you? Yeah.
Obviously it does for some.
If you're gonna sell your soul to this platform and be there like I used to be for 5 hours a day. But the question is, as a working mom or, somebody who wants to be present in your family's life, like, is that really the way? And so I just want to create some questions in your heart around, what do you want your life and business to really look like? And know that they're going to be countercultural. Everyone's going to tell you you're wrong. But I and thousands of students have proven you can use podcasting as long form content to grow a thriving, hugely successful business that I believe glorifies God because you're still present in your actual life. Like, I don't believe that he's asking us to sell our souls to these platforms. I don't think that's not who he is. And I often, whenever something is of the world, like people are like, you got to do this, you got to hustle. It's like, then I know it's not of God because that's not the way that he asks us to show up in the world.
Yes.
Just start asking questions and see what comes back.
Just that whole you cannot serve two masters thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm so glad I ran across you in the podcasting because I'd been convinced it has to be long form content. So then I was like, okay, it's got to be either blog or YouTube. Everyone says it's video is the way to go. And like you said, that is not very practical when you have a bunch of small kids in the house. So the idea that podcasting would fill that niche was just this new revelation to me.
Right. It's so nice. And there's so many different ways that podcasting can work for you. Give me some examples, Alyssa, of like what businesses might someone in your audience want to start? What micro niches? Just give me some micro niches and I'll do a few examples of how maybe podcasting could work for them.
Sure. So I'm thinking a gut health coach.
Cool.
And then also a VA.
Ooh, nice. Yeah. I love that. Okay. So I have a few students who are VAs or started VA businesses. And so what you want to do is you want to think about, okay, if I'm a virtual assistant and I want to grow my virtual assisting business from home, you want to think about who would be the ideal listener that would buy this offer. So that those of you that have a service already, you're going to think about who is the ideal buyer, and you're going to reverse engineer backwards. So like a VA, for example, you might actually have a podcast called like Successful Entrepreneurs or Operational Entrepreneur, and then like actually have guests on who would be your ideal avatar. And then you would say like, hey, don't want to scale your business on your own, or don't know how to run an operation system for your business, or hey, need a podcast manager, or hi, are you struggling to manage your inbox as a busy entrepreneur? I'm a virtual assistant. I would love to help you. And you actually pitch on your podcast. So you wouldn't probably teach VA stuff because you want an entrepreneur to hire you unless you were teaching other VAs how to be a VA, right? So you kind of reverse engineer who would buy from you. And you create content for that person in mind. You don't know that content, just have a guest podcast. Like there's no rules in podcasting. You can have a guest. You can have 5-minute episodes. You can have hour-long conversations with successful entrepreneurs and find out why they're successful and what their back end of their business looks like. Like you can do anything you want to do that will add value to your ideal person. So the second example with gut health, this might be something where you don't have an offer yet, but you know what your micro niche is, and you want to start that podcast to start growing the listeners and the audience so that when you have an offer, you have someone to sell to. So that could look something like, you can go super SEO, which is just search engine optimization, basic, like gut health for moms or gut health for working women or gut health made simple. Like you can have a podcast like that, or you can have something more spicy, gut health. And then you would have the TSO, which is your tagline on your podcast are be more specific, be more blatant. So for example, you could have something like the Bubble Gut Show, and then your tagline would be making gut health simple for constipated women. Like it could be funny,
Mm-hmm.
And then you get in there and you have all of these episodes around like 3 ways to battle your constipation naturally, or the number one thing you should be eating if you're dealing with bloating. So you would have these really keyword punchy episode titles. Those are how you get found. So as people start to come to your new gut health podcast, you would figure out first, maybe you start with coaching, like, hey, I'd love to sit with you on a session, or maybe you have the gut health framework course in the future, right? That's how you actually monetize and make money from your show. So it doesn't matter what your micro niche is. This can work for you. I have seen everything. I mean, everything from like a lawyer who wants to do copyrights for people to declutter coaches to people who write devotionals. I mean, it doesn't matter what you do. This can be the method of growth.
That's amazing because yes, I definitely gotten stuck in that trap of you have to create the content as if you were the coach and you're teaching on your expertise. And I always wondered, but how would that work for the VA?
Yeah.
That kind of service business. And that's so genius. You make the podcast that the people who want to hire you want to listen to, and then you bring that in. That's amazing. And then in the beginning, I know you mentioned a workshop about calling, and I think that would be an amazing thing for our listeners. Can you tell us some more about that one?
Yeah. So I actually have 2 workshops. I think this first one is really for you if you are confused. What would my business be? I'm good at this, or I'm good at this, or I don't think I'm good at anything. I don't know what it would be. Like, this is where you start, and it's freeclarityworkshop.com. freeclarityworkshop.com. It's about an hour, and it goes through the 4 steps to getting clear on your calling. And then it teaches you how to kind of dig through all of those different layers to come up with the business plan. So that's that first workshop. Now, the second workshop is podcastforgrowth.com. And this workshop is if you have a business already, you already have one, but everything I said about social media is resonating. You're like, I'm curious if podcasting could be the way to grow my business. Then that workshop is for you. It teaches you why podcasting works. It gives lots of examples and comparison between all the different methods of growing a business versus podcasting. And then it teaches you how you actually start a podcast, because people get really confused and overwhelmed. Like, oh, that must be so hard and it must be so many steps. But the workshop will really lay it out for you and show you exactly what you have to do. So those are 2 great workshops that I think can really bless you and help you.
Okay, so basically, if you need an in-depth version of this episode, it goes into way more detail, get the second workshop. And if you just need to sit with what your micro niche should be, like we were talking about in the beginning, get the first one. We'll have those linked for you.
Perfect.
So thank you, Steph. And can you tell our listeners where they can find you in general if they want to listen to your podcast, all the other things you offer?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Alyssa. This has been so much fun. You guys can come and listen to my podcast, The Stefanie Gass Show, where I help Christian women grow their online business. Of course, anyone's welcome. You know, whatever your faith might be, you are welcome to come listen. And then stephaniegass.com is my website. Lots of other fun goodies and free things. And those workshops can all be found over there. And that's stefaniegaass.com.
And word of warning, Stefanie has been so successful. She has literally hundreds. And I don't mean she has 201. I'm talking 500 plus. So you are going to get sucked in and have to stick with her a long time to learn everything from her.
Yeah. People are always like, I'm like, so, you know, how'd you find me? They're like, I just binged your podcast for like a straight year. And then here I am. Lots of episodes.
Yes, which is so amazing. All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Steph.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Bye for now and have a great day.